Welcome to another edition of the PhinManiacs.com podcast. My name is Louis Sung, and as always, with me is my co-host Chad Ronenbaum, and we have a lot of stuff to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen. We've got lots of Ryan Tannehill talk coming our way. We've got some college quarterback talk, actually, thanks to our friend Ian Wharton of the Bleacher Report, who will be joining us soon, and of course, our good friend Efren Ramos, also with the website, will be joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, we actually have a very special treat for you all. Earlier today, I had the distinct pleasure of getting to do an exclusive interview with Miami Dolphins safety, soon-to-be Pro Bowler, if we all do our parts, Reshad Jones. So we'll be playing that for you in just a little bit. But let's just talk about this real quick, Chad, because we have to kind of get this this part over with. But we're pretty much going to be repeating what we said for the past few weeks now. The game against the man, I don't even remember who they played. The Jets. The Jets. Yeah, that's right. All the games have started to look the same to me. They lose badly, and then they go home and talk about how they're going to run the ball more. So, quick thoughts, Chad, on the whole Jets debacle.
Well, it's pretty much more of the same. I mean, I thought the defining moment of that game was when the Jets came out and they went for it on 4th and 1 on their own 40, which is a pretty high-risk move. At that point in the game, it was 0-0, and the defense did it. They shut them down and held them, giving the Dolphins the ball on the Jets 40 early on in that game. And for most teams, that's a huge gift to be able to get yourself an early lead, especially on the road. And Miami, proceeded to come right out and go 3 and out. So it was, again, in my mind, poor play calling on Bill Lazor's part. And I've been feeling pretty confident saying that for the last few months. I felt the play calling has been pretty bad. And in this game in particular, we saw a lot of it looked like the Jets really knew what was coming. They were all over the routes the Dolphins were trying to run, which was making life very difficult for the offense in general. And, again, the Dolphins made almost no attempt to establish the run. And the Jets are known for blitzing, and they were blitzing a lot. And, there they were running their play action again, and that does nothing but get the Dolphins sacked. So nothing shocking, I guess. So I'm really, really hoping that Bill Lazor gone now makes a change.
Yeah, that's another thing that needs to be discussed is the whole transition from Bill Lazor to Zach Taylor, who is, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the son-in-law of long-departed Miami Dolphins offensive coordinator Mike Sherman. So, for better or worse, Mike Sherman is essentially back in control of the offense, and this time he's using Bill Lazor's playbook. So, hooray, I guess. I don't know. Depends on how you view this season going forward. If you want the Dolphins to get a really good draft pick, then I guess hooray, huzzah. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the idea of just losing every game from here on out, because the fan in me says that we want to win, but then the analyst in me says, you know what, if we really want to compete next year, we need to get the best possible prospect we can get, because in all honesty, there's no signs that I can see that Dan Campbell is deserving really of the permanent head coaching job. I mean, I know the players love him. I love him too, because he's so candid. He doesn't make excuses. If they played badly, he goes out and says they played badly. It's not a matter of we didn't play well in all 3 phases of the game. That was the Joe Philbin era. Campbell at least talks about it like it is, but he looks like he's in over his head out there, and that's really sad, because he's he's the epitome of a player's coach. He knows how to deal with these players, and I'm gonna miss Dan Campbell. Really, I am. But new coaching candidates will be discussed, I'm sure, later on in this show. But before we move on with anything else, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go ahead and give you all that treat that I promised you. Just earlier today, I had the distinct pleasure of interviewing Reshad Jones and talking about his Pro Bowl, looking for the Pro Bowl. Some stuff about playing safety, and some of the things that what it is to be considered a top safety in the league. What do you have to do to get that kind of recognition? So we'll just play that for you right now. So sit back and enjoy. We're joined now by Miami Dolphins safety Reshad Jones, who currently leads all NFL DBs in combined tackles with 98, and he also has 2 sacks and 3 interceptions under his belt so far in 2015. He's one of, if not the best safety in the league, and he's currently going for his first ever Pro Bowl appearance, which you all can help out with by going to NFL.com/Pro Bowl/ballot and voting for him. Reshad, thanks for taking some time out of your day to talk to us, man. We really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.
So before we get into any of the football talk, I got to ask this question. How was your Thanksgiving?
It was great, man. It was great. Family came in, got time to spend. Got a little free time to spend with my family, man. We had an awesome time.
You had enough stuffing to go around?
Oh, yeah, most definitely. It's no Thanksgiving without the stuffing.
I'm partial to sweet potato casserole myself, but, you know, we all have our own little thing.
Speaking of sweet potato casserole, man, you got to go to Ruth Chris and try their sweet potato casserole, one of the best there is.
Oh, all right, I'll do that then. Thanks for the suggestion. I'm always on the lookout for some good local restaurants and stuff. So anyway, so I just read off the stats, man, and it's pretty clear to anybody who's watching or listening in that you're playing at an all-pro level right now, and it's not easy to be a player of your caliber right now in the NFL, especially with the way that defense is being watched by the refs and always trying to be sure that you're not going to get yourself into trouble with a penalty or anything like that. What is it that you've changed in your game that people are now recognizing you as an all-pro caliber safety, do you think?
Just my preparation, man. You know, I'm a veteran guy in the league now. You know, I know the defense inside and out. You know, I know where my linebackers are going to be. I know where the D-line is stunned to. You know, so my preparation, man. You know, it's more mental part. The older you get in this league, you know, the more prepared and mental you have to. The more mentally prepared you have to be ready. So, you know, I just from that aspect, you know, I just continue to, you know, get in the books and learn more. Learn as much as I can about the defense, and you know, that helped me be in the right spot to continue to make plays for us to help us win.
And the linebacker assignments, they have a lot to do with where you are on the field, and who is it that really makes those calls on the field? Is it you? I remember.
Yeah, the safety, you know, which is me, is more like the quarterback on defense. You know, we make all the checks and all the all the calls. You know, we get everybody aligned and signed. So I'm that guy on the back end that make those calls.
All right. So I also have some very interesting numbers here, and this is actually what baffles me about the fact that you haven't been named for a Pro Bowl yet. I'm looking at these numbers here, and I have you. I have your numbers like right next to the likes of Troy Polamalu and Brian Dawkins. Both of those guys, like for instance, Troy Polamalu, he went to 8 Pro Bowls in his 12-year career, and Brian Dawkins went to 9 in his 16 years. And just looking at your numbers, you have your numbers are either on par or better than any of those guys, and it just feels like to me that you should have been considered a Pro Bowl worthy player for a long time now. So I want to ask you this. You're only just now getting the recognition that fans feel that you deserve. What does a safety have to do to be recognized in the league nowadays as a top guy? I mean, I know that defensive ends are usually judged by their sacks, quarterbacks by their quarterback rating. So what is it that a safety has to do to be considered one of the best?
I think the Pro Bowl is more of a popularity contest, man. It's not based on performance, you know, because like you say, man, reading the stats off, my play has been, you know, I have excelled in those numbers, you know, in the stat book. You know, I have put up numbers with the best of them. So I don't think the Pro Bowl is I think it's more of a, you know, popularity contest. Who name is bigger, different things like that. You know, I would like to know what you have to do, you know, to be recognized as a Pro Bowler, or what numbers you have to put up, you know, because like you say, man, my numbers are tremendous, man, and I think winning is a big have a big factor in, you know, making a Pro Bowl. Also, you know, I've been on a losing team. I haven't made the playoffs since I've been here, you know, so that kind of hurt me too. So you know, that's why I'm trying to do everything in my power and to help the Miami Dolphins win a football game. That's most important.
And you've definitely been doing your part, man. I mean, I've covered the team for about a year and a half now. I've watched you in practice. I've watched you play games. I've been very impressed, and you're a big part of that football team. And I'm hoping that eventually the team's gonna find a way to get to the playoffs and bring this whole team and this city, for that matter, a playoff team that they've been wanting for the last 2 decades almost. So. And I also wanted to ask you this. This is more along the lines of back when you were just getting brought in. You're playing at a Pro Bowl level, but obviously it wasn't always that way. You were drafted by the Dolphins in the 5th round of the 2010 draft. You were getting used to the speed of the NFL, making that transition. And for all rookies, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are or which college you're coming from. There's always going to be this transition period. Who would you say that when you came to Miami really took you under their wing and kind of helped you make that transition and helped mold you into the player you are today?
Todd Bowles, taught me a lot, man. Learning up on the Todd Bowles, he kind of helped me prepare and get me to where I am today, and a veteran guy like Yerma Bell, watching him practice and play, he wasn't the most vocal leader, but he was the guy who goes out and get it done, and I learned from that. I learned a lot from that kind of guy. He was a pro, man. He showed me how to be a pro and how to handle the game.
What was it in terms of preparation that he taught you how to do? What was it that he wanted to really get across to you that you needed to do if you really wanted to become the all-pro player that you should be right now?
Just study, get in the film room, break down tape, just basically get a jump on the offense. Anytime you step on a football field, you want to be able to have an advantage on the defense side of the ball, and basically, he just taught me just how to get in there, how to study, how to watch breakdown film, and how to get that advantage, and my 6 year in the league, it's coming around and it's coming along now. Now I know how to watch film and what routes to look for, different things like that, concepts and, to help me pretty much get that advantage.
And it seems to me that the game plan kind of changes from week to week. Is there a difference in how you would study film based on which team that you're playing, or is it just kind of the same process week in and week out?
It's basically the same process, then breaking down, looking at the quarterbacks. Some quarterbacks scramble a little bit longer, like Tony Romo, Ben Roethlisberger. You have to, on the back end, from the back end standpoint, you have to be in coverage a little bit longer. So, sometimes you have to cover for 2 seconds, and then sometimes you have to cover for 8 seconds, playing those kind of quarterbacks. So it's different things. It varies, it's different things that you look for when breaking down film.
All right. So, you've been in the league for almost 6 years now. You're a seasoned veteran. You know all these things. But is there anybody else is there somebody that you look up to even now that you would say that you base your game off of?
I think Ed Reed, because Ed Reed was the guy that can come down and deliver a blow, and he was a great ball hog and safety, and I think I can do both. That's what makes the great ones. The versatility. He was one of those guys that's versatile like myself. I can come in the box and be a linebacker if you need me, or I can be on the back end, chasing down the ball and making plays on the ball in the air.
And you have been all over the field this year, man. It kind of feels like that you're playing both positions at once sometimes. So, would you say that's a good evaluation of what the safety position is? That you pretty much have to kind of play both cornerback and linebacker at once?
Oh yeah, most definitely, man. That's what makes the great ones. Being able to be interchangeable and playing cornerback, safety, or linebacker when need be.
Yep, definitely. I definitely agree with that, man. Because you know what, I've watched this. I've watched these past few games. I've watched you in the games. I've watched you be all over the place, and I just keep thinking to myself, man, how has this guy not made a Pro Bowl yet? How has he not gotten that sort of recognition yet? And I guess you're right. It is the popularity contest of the Pro Bowl. I've always thought that, but sometimes eventually the cream rises to the top. So. You're a veteran. Young players look to you for guidance and leadership. And just recently, just this year, in fact, one of the young players who has to still do some developing, Walt Aikens, he was thrust into the fire when Louis Delmas went down during the scrimmage in Carolina. I was actually there. I watched it happen, and I thought to myself, "Oh man, that's just not fair." Have you talked to Louis? Have you seen how he's been doing? How's he been? Man, I'm actually curious about that.
He's all football, man. That's a guy that he's passionate about the game. He loves the game. He's around in the building every day when he don't have to be. He's right now, like I told him, man. Just take this time to get physically and mentally strong. Come back and make this the strongest season. Next year that you ever had. Everything happened for a reason. And I told him right now, just take this time to prepare and get mentally and physically strong. And just come back ready.
It actually shocked me how fast he came back. I thought to myself when he came back and we were hearing that he was ahead of schedule, I thought to myself, he just tore his whole knee apart. How is he coming back so quickly? It almost felt like that he wasn't human. How quickly he came back from that injury.
Yeah, I don't think he's human, man. I don't think he's human.
So Walt Aikens, drafted out of Liberty as a corner. The Dolphins decided to move him to safety, and he's been thrown into the fire. Now he's having to play in Lewis's absence. How would you, as a fellow safety, evaluate his development so far?
I think he's made strides, but he still has a long way to go, man. He's a young guy, have all the attributes. He's big, he's physical, he's tall. He just gotta continue to prepare and get the mental part of the game. I think he's going to be a good safety in the league once he continues to develop.
Do you see any aspects of yourself in the way that he can play the game?
I won't say that, man. Everybody's a little different. Like I said, man, my best attributes is that I'm versatile, and it's hard. That's rare to find, in a safety that can come cover and come in the box and be a linebacker and be in the back end. He does some things well. As far as his range, he gets to the ball well, and he used to play corner, so he has that ability also. So I think he's the guy that's, like I said, man. Once he continues to develop and continue to get the mental part of the game, he'll be fine.
Yep, I actually see a lot of talent in Walt. I know he's been getting a lot of flack from fans recently because of some mistakes he's made. But I think what they need to understand is that he's a young player. He's still learning. He had to make the transition from cornerback to safety, and he was kind of thrown into the NFL fire without a whole lot of time to make that adaptation.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. He's a strictly safety now. So like I said, man, he just got to continue to prepare and continue to work at his craft, and hopefully he can come around, man, and help the team win.
Yeah. So this is a little more of a technical question. This is more along the lines of finding the differences between positions. Now, this is for listeners who may not know some of the more technical sides of the game. I was wondering if you could explain to the listeners what exactly is the difference between a free safety and a strong safety. Are their roles any different from each other?
Not too much, not in our defense, because our free safety and strong safety pretty much do the same thing. But I think in a lot of defenses, it changes. Most of the time, strong safety will be the guy that come down in the box to cover tight ends, and a free safety is the rangy guy that can go on the back end and be in the middle of the field and break on the deep out throws and different things like that help to make plays on the back end. So if any difference, from the free safety and strong safety, that probably be the most different. One is a more of a box safety, and one is a more rangy cover guy.
So that's what they call playing in center field is basically what you mean.
Exactly.
Right. All right. So just one more thing before I let you go now, Reshad, because you're busy, and I understand that. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk. So, like we brought up earlier, and like I've said, with all the numbers and everything and how you've been playing, you're playing at an All-Pro level, and finally people are starting to recognize that fact. You're pushing for your first ever Pro Bowl appearance, which, in my opinion, is long overdue anyway. What would it mean to you personally if it's later revealed that you were chosen to go to Hawaii and play in the Pro Bowl?
It's a huge accomplishment, man. That's something that I always dreamed about, that I always wanted, and it just to let me know that, all my hard work and dedication is not being overlooked anymore. The guys are recognizing me as one of those top safeties in the league.
Yeah, right up there with the likes of Cam Chancellor and those guys, because I know that with the teams like the Seahawks, they get more recognition because they've won more. But in my honest opinion, not necessarily as a fan, but also as somebody who a student of the game of football, I've seen what you can do, and I really like what you've been able to accomplish. So I think if any year it happens, I think this would be the year, because honestly, if people don't recognize that and they just decide to go with the big name, whoever that is anymore, I think they would be making a mistake, because this isn't as a Dolphins fan. This is purely as a football analyst. You have meant so much to the Dolphins defense for the past couple of years now, and I think that you really deserve to get that trip to Hawaii.
Oh yeah, most definitely, man, and I hope it happens for me.
So now let me just be candid for a moment, man. I mean, going to the Pro Bowl is a nice accomplishment, but it's a nice little bonus to be able to go to Hawaii, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what would you do up there?
Just have my family, just to bring my family up, kind of chill and just get ready for the game, pretty much.
No sun, no surf? Come on, man.
I'll probably do something like that. I don't know yet. I've never been to Hawaii, so I'll just have to see when I get there.
I'll have to ask some people to tell me what's up there. So I have some family members up in Hawaii. I'm going to have to ask them what's there to do for newcomers. And I'll make sure to let you know.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so thanks, Reshad, for joining us on for the interview, man. We really appreciate that. And for all you listeners out there, if you want to vote for Reshad, remember that's NFL.com/Pro Bowl/ballot. And Reshad Jones, safety for the Miami Dolphins, one of the best in the league, if not the best at this point. Make sure you vote for him. And thanks again, Reshad, for joining us, man.
No problem, man. Again, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Can you hear me, Louis?
Can you hear me, guys? I'm here.
Yeah, I think we're having some technical difficulties here. Louis is working on it. Anyway, how you doing, Efren?
Chad, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. Can't complain. It's pretty cool. We had Reshad Jones on the show there. That was a really neat interview Louis got in there today with him.
That was a cool interview. I was hoping he'd divulge a little bit more of his Hawaii plans, but he kept it pretty. He didn't want us to know.
You keeping that on the down low, huh?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Hawaii yourself?
Man, no way. I wish.
Yeah, I haven't either. So I've had some opportunities, but I've always ended up going to the Caribbean instead. Down there, I've never been to Hawaii, so maybe someday. So, but man, it'd be pretty amazing to go for to play in the Pro Bowl. My God.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a trip. So it'd be nice to get him there to get some positive out of the season. As we're starting to get into that part of the season where it's evaluation, looking forward to next year. And I hate that part of the season, so I'm hoping they get that out of it. I mean, we didn't get the bonus of the Patriots losing, so I was really hoping that they didn't go undefeated. the 1972 Dolphin fan of me anyway wanted that to not happen.
Yeah, it's always good. I mean, it was bound to happen with all the injuries. Kind of just...
Yeah, I mean, they've been decimated, so it's crazy.
Hello?
Hey, Lois.
Hey.
There we go. Yeah, for some reason,
some small talk.
For some reason, my microphone decided it didn't want to work anymore after I unmuted it. So that was weird, but whatever. So, guys, so tell me about it. What did you think of Reshad Jones's interview here?
I thought it was a good interview. He was pretty open at times. I liked that, when you asked him about Walt Aikens, because that's a big decision coming into next year. Because, even if Luis Delmas makes it back and they have him back in the team next year, I think they're getting into a situation where they got to really consider bringing in a free agent or drafting a safety, and that decision is going to be drastically impacted by how Walt Aikens plays over the remainder of the season. So I kind of got the feel from Reshad that he really likes his potential, but he wasn't also going to say, he's just a dominating player right now. He's acknowledging he has a ways to go, and he's got a lot to learn yet. And the only way you do that is to get it in the game and go through the trials. Because I remember when Reshad was playing early on, and he was not this all-star player like he's playing now his first year or two. He was making, they were having to teach him where to be and things like that. So I'm hoping that Walt Aikens can get there as well.
Yeah, he brought up Jeremiah Bell and Todd Bowles, surprisingly enough, on people who helped him become who he is today. And like I was trying to say before I had technical difficulties, I wanted to welcome Efren Ramos and, of course, Bleacher Report's Ian Wharton into the show. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you for coming.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
So that was Reshad Jones, and I really appreciated the fact that he was willing to be so open with it. He really what I appreciate is that he really believes that he's worthy of a Pro Bowl. That sort of confidence and that sort of candid way of speaking, that doesn't usually come from players. It's always more on the lines of, the teammates help, and this year, not really. Pretty much it's been Sue and Jones, and that's been about it. He's not going to say it that far, but he knows that he's good, and I appreciate that kind of confidence from him.
Well, he's been campaigning, and it doesn't bother me. I feel like if you feel like you deserve it, you might as well campaign for it. But I'll support him. I think he deserves it, and it's not something you see from. I don't remember the last time a Dolphins player had to campaign for his Pro Bowl bid, but.
Well, how many Dolphins players have been worthy of going to the Pro Bowl recently, anyway?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'll ask this question because it's something that people have been discussing back and forth for a while now, ever since he started playing like this. Considering that there's not as many safeties in the league that you can consider elite as there used to be, would you consider Reshad Jones to be the top safety in the NFL?
I guess I'll start. I wouldn't say top yet, but I don't think he's reached his ceiling. I think he could. I think if he gets better pieces around him, we can really see him shine. But at this point, first, I don't know.
Who would you put above him?
Off the top, I'm not sure.
How about you, Ian?
I don't know if I'd have him number one, but he's right in that mix. I think. He's right up there with guys a little bit different, being a strong safety, but Harrison Smith of Minnesota, Malcolm Jenkins, guys definitely come to mind. Obviously, Devin McCourty over New England. I think that he's got the kind of the reputation, kind of the play style. Cam Chancellor and obviously Earl Thomas. I think those are all guys that he's right in the mix in. I wouldn't sit here and say he's not the best in the NFL, but I won't say that he is either. he's definitely right there in that discussion, though. Especially this year, he's been so good. Like 3 out of the last 4 years, that it's kind of interesting to me that with Miami's struggles, how under the radar I feel like he is nationally.
And that's the sad part. Yeah. Go ahead, Efren.
Is Tyrann Mathieu playing safety this year? Because I know he's kind of all over the place, but
slot corner for the most part.
For the most part, okay.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you vote for Reshad to get into the Pro Bowl. Even if he's not the best, which personally at this point I feel like he's on his way if he isn't there already, but he's shown that he's deserving for that Pro Bowl nod. So let's at least send one of our guys to Hawaii to enjoy themselves. He's earned it, I think.
I agree with you, Lewis. I think he's deserving. I haven't stacked him up against all the other safeties in the league. I have to say, I was thinking Calvin Pryor was playing pretty well for the Jets too. I could be wrong on that. I haven't watched a lot of film on him in particular, but I think in terms of flexibility, Reshad Jones is one of those guys who is right now he's excelling in both pass defense and run defense. I mean, he's had several plays where he's gotten into the backfield and broken up plays, and obviously he's been getting some interceptions and practicing his acrobats into the end zone off of those. So I think of any season, it's telling. It's right now the defense is a completely different beast with him in there because of the versatility he brings. That makes it a lot harder for an offensive coordinator to attack where Miami's going to use him at in particular. So I think Sue obviously is another guy on defense that's deserving right now. I know he's been taking some heat here and there because of his contract, but Sue's been dominating at times in games. To me, he's looked like a true all-pro tackle. So him and Reshad Jones, I think, in terms of this year, are the two players I think on defense that have a real chance at a Pro Bowl.
And those are the two that I would send, and at this point, pretty much the only two. I mean, even Juice, as much as he's done on the offensive side of the ball, he's made some pretty dumb mistakes. I can't deny that much, but
well, it's tough for Juice because you're going up against, there's some really big names at the wide receiver position. I think receiver is an easy one to get noticed at because it's all about receptions, yards, and touchdowns and things like that. And it's hard for Landry because he's just not on can you say it? That's not a very prolific offense he's playing on. Granted, he's playing his heart out, but when you got other guys in the mix like AJ Green and guys like that, it's going to be hard for Landry to find a spot in the Pro Bowl. But clearly, I think if you're judging slot receivers, he's one of the better ones in the league.
One thing that Landry's got going for him that he's starting to get pretty popular. He's a bigger name than he was last year, that's for sure. And he's
I think he could. I think the biggest thing he needs to be in the Pro Bowl discussion is just more stats. I mean, like you think of a guy like Edelman on the Patriots, and he gets so many stats per game because the Patriots just score points all the time for the most part, and so that's what Landry struggles as. Is Miami's offense has been just horrific, so it makes it hard for you to get noticed. But he has done it in other ways. He's in terms of how tough he is and a leader, and he's doing all right, I would say.
Yeah, that's pretty much my stance on the whole thing. Like, he's done a lot. If he could go to the Pro Bowl as a slot guy, but he's still got a ways to go before he becomes one of those guys. So now let's switch topics here because we have to talk about this, and I feel like I got to get this off my chest. I've kind of been holding it in all week so far. This whole week has been very difficult for Dolphins fans in particular. It's also been very difficult for anybody who wants to be a supporter of Ryan Tannehill in any way, shape, or form. This has always been the situation. It's either black or white. You either hate this guy or you love this guy. If you claim to be in the middle, which I am, by the way, you are automatically the enemy of everybody because everybody will accuse you of being a hater or supporter. So that's very difficult for people like me and other people like ourselves who are not willing to crown Tannehill the man, but they're not the ones who are saying he's the problem. What they want is a solution. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me just say this here and now. Whoever you're going to be looking for out there there's a very, very low chance that they're going to be better than Ryan Tannehill. You don't know until you draft him, but guess what? Even if you do draft him, which I'm not opposed to, there's a very low chance he'll be able to beat out Tannehill, and that's happened a lot with a lot of college quarterbacks in the past few decades or so. Just last week when we had Max of the New York Jet Fuel podcast on, I read off a list of quarterbacks in the past few years in the first round who have pretty much flopped on their faces, and only a choice few, Tannehill included, are actually still considered starters in the NFL. It's a crapshoot. No matter who you're going to draft, no matter out of where, and even this golden boy, Andrew Luck, out of Indianapolis, is struggling, and you can say it's injuries or whatever, but guess what? He's not able to carry his team anymore because either he's hurt or something is wrong here, something is wrong there. It didn't work. He went to the playoffs 3 years in a row. Yeah, he sure did. He was playing against the Jaguars, the Titans, and the Texans. Oh joy. Well, look at how hard he has it over there. Like, that's a free trip to the playoffs. And then every time Tom Brady showed up in his house or they showed up in their house, they left with their tails between their legs. Is that Andrew Luck's fault? Nobody's going to say it is, but for some reason it's always Tannehill's fault when the Dolphins lose. So now that I'm done getting that off my chest, I'm going to go back to the college quarterback point. And Ian, this is where your expertise is really going to come in handy, because you're the one who really focuses in on college quarterbacks, and you're the one who does all the draft stuff. We were speaking about a week ago about this disturbing trend in college quarterbacks in recent years, and their concurrent failures in the NFL, I guess you could say, their struggles to adjust to the NFL level. Can you recap exactly what it is that you said you noticed in quarterbacks coming out of college nowadays and why they're having these issues?
Yeah, I mean, it's, specifically looking over the 2016 class, which we're kind of expecting, and I guess you can go back to 2015 class too, especially Marcus Mariota, more so than Jameis Winston. I thought Winston was probably as pro-ready as you can get as a quarterback. But looking at these quarterbacks, what we're seeing in college is we're just looking at very simplified offenses. You're seeing a maximum of usually 2 reads on the field, which is very light work. And generally, if you look at a guy like Paxton Lynch, just for example, he mainly has 1 read, and then he'll just dump the ball off. It's very difficult to enter the NFL working with that because at the most simplified level and even the most basic NFL level, that's harder to do, even like 1 read and then dump off in the NFL, just because, again, passing windows are even tighter. You're not playing with better athletes all around you, such as generally in college guys are. I think that what you can expect to see for most quarterbacks, again, not all. I think Jared Goff is a very good prospect in general. But there's just a bigger learning curve to a more exotic offense in the NFL because we're asking them to do more. And if you look at the run-pass splits across the NFL, only 1 team runs more than they pass. That's the Carolina Panthers. And
the only undefeated team in football. Make note.
Yep. And if you actually look at it, the least balanced teams in the NFL, only the New England Patriots, and I think it's like the least 12 balanced NFL teams. Only the Patriots are a winning team. Everyone else has a losing record, and it's usually not even close. I know, for example, Detroit, Miami, Cleveland, Baltimore are among the most pass-heavy teams in the NFL. Well, there's a reason why. None of those teams have one of those amazing Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So why are you passing the ball that much? So it's simply too much stress on the quarterback. It's too much emphasis on the quarterback. When you don't have a Drew Brees, a Tom Brady, you should not be throwing the ball that much. And even, honestly, with Drew Brees, the Saints stink this year too, and they're one of the more pass-heavy teams in the NFL. So it's a very limited it's a very limiting offense when you have to throw the ball all the time. And some situations are a little bit different with that as well. Defenses can be so bad that you just have to pass the ball to kind of get back in it. Miami usually finds themselves in that position in the second half of games. But I think that we're just in general asking too much of the quarterback. I think the ideals for quarterbacks are too high as well. Our standards are too high. When you look across the league, when guys have bad supporting casts, they usually don't play well. Look at Aaron Rodgers right now out in Green Bay. Look at Tom Brady last year before he got Gronkowski back. He didn't play well. It's not that he was a different guy. He just didn't have his, literally a Hall of Fame tight end and an all-pro type receiver like Julian Edelman. So it's a very complex position. I think we hold these guys to just too high of a standard in general. We kind of pick apart their game, and we see that out of college too. I mean, sometimes a pass isn't perfect, but we can't act like NFL quarterbacks always make perfect passes as well. So again, you mix in with a giant responsibility on their shoulders, just crazy expectations. When you look at the top quarterbacks in the NFL, they're mostly in their mid-30s. And I think that there's a reason. Mentally, it takes a long time to master things, and especially at that position. So these young quarterbacks that haven't had to go through a nuanced offense and have just kind of had things adjusted to an easier level, per se, especially in college, so that coaches can win now and not worry about the consequences later. it makes it very difficult to draft the guy and be confident in their development in the first 4 or 5 years.
And that's what that was part of the discussion that we were having last week between me, Chad, and Max of the New York Jet Fuel. A lot of quarterbacks nowadays, Ian, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, the ones that are considered really good, they got a chance to sit and play behind some of the more, I guess you could say, the more successful quarterbacks in recent history. Like Aaron Rodgers, how long did he sit behind Brett Favre before he was finally thrown into the fire? How long, even Tom Brady, he got to sit behind Drew Bledsoe for a little while, so it's not like he was sitting behind a scrub and they were just holding him back. Drew Bledsoe was the guy in New England before Brady came in and said, hey, look, I can be the guy too. So, and then I'm looking at other quarterbacks. Wasn't Phillip Rivers behind Drew Brees for a little while? Not that Drew Brees was that elite quarterback in San Diego, but he was pretty good then too. So I'm just looking at that, and I'm thinking to myself, we all want these guys to come in and just light the NFL up on fire. RG3 did it the first year. He's all but out of the league ever since then. Russell Wilson, he came in and did things with Marshawn Lynch and that Legion of Boom, and everybody thought that Russell Wilson was turned into this superstar quarterback, and now the Seahawks are pretty much flopping now that the defense is not as powerful as it used to be, and Marshawn Lynch is quickly becoming a non-factor. It baffles me that nobody can seem to see this past their aqua and orange glasses. I understand it. We look at the Dolphins more than anybody else, so we don't really pay much attention to what other teams are doing with their quarterbacks to try and make sure that they're prepared to take on the responsibilities of a real NFL quarterback. I said this earlier this week. It really feels like the NFL is quickly becoming college 2.0 because pro offenses is kind of becoming a dying breed.
Yeah, and to kind of further your point too is some quarterbacks just needed a much better system around them. Ben Roethlisberger here's a great example. I mean, he always had weapons in Pittsburgh, and he wasn't asked to do much early in his career. But he was never considered more than a Ryan Tannehill type quarterback until Todd Haley came in. They drafted Le'Veon Bell. They got Antonio Brown. They had Mike Wallace at the time. Heath Miller's always been there. And their offensive line went from worst to like one of the top 5 offensive lines in football. And people don't really look at that and say, oh, wow, he is surrounded by like literally probably a top 2 or 3 situation in the NFL. But he is. And that's not to disparage him. Again, the point is to win games. You're not trying to win games with less. Like, you want to have amazing playmakers all over. That's the point of the game, is to build a strong team. And I don't think we should disparage a quarterback for that, but it is also the reality, is that those players work off each other to all make themselves better. It's not Ben Roethlisberger making all those guys better. He's got probably the number 1 running back and the number 1 receiver in the NFL on his team. And so, like, they all work in harmony. And I think that that's something important to kind of keep in mind with these young quarterbacks, is to generally get a high pick for a quarterback, you were a very bad team. So you're usually lacking playmakers on your roster. So it may take years to not only find the right coaching staff, but it also can take years to find the right playmakers. And I think that that's something Miami especially is going through, especially when you kind of compare how Seattle has built up their roster, and especially Indianapolis, how they continue to just dump truck resources into trying to improve the offense there in Indianapolis. Even though they've missed on some, especially offensive linemen, they're at least trying like crazy to improve that situation around him. So, you know, it doesn't take 1 draft. It doesn't take 2 drafts. Some of these guys, it might take 7 or 8 years, and that's just a fact of football. I mean, it's a sport of continuity and a unified vision. I think that's where Miami's really suffered.
So if you were the GM of the Miami Dolphins, what are you doing in 2016 besides hiring somebody not named Dan Campbell?
Yeah, obviously it kind of depends on who the coach that you bring in. I mean, you're sticking with Tannehill, I think, obviously at least until, you know, the guaranteed money runs through him. And I kind of find myself in the same spot as you, Lewis. I find myself defending him way more often than I want to.
Because the accusations are just off the charts.
Ridiculous. Yeah, they're ridiculous. He's still a top 12 quarterback in the NFL. And I know that might seem crazy, but that's literally the state of quarterbacks in the NFL. Look at a guy like Matt Ryan. People act like he's Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan has fallen off the face of the earth this year. And he's got a true number one receiver. He's got a top 5 running back in the NFL, and he's got one of the best offensive coordinators in the NFL. So, that's a guy that literally has no excuses. He's just not playing well. And that's not the same situation as Miami. There's again, has there been issues with Tannehill? Absolutely. Does he have stuff to work on? Absolutely. Will he ever be an elite guy? Probably not. But that's okay. You can still win with guys like that. There's a reason why Drew Brees only has 1 Super Bowl. Peyton Manning has 1 Super Bowl. It's a very difficult game to win. And you have to have a lot go right around you to make that happen. So first thing I'm doing is I'm sticking with Tannehill. I have no doubts in my mind that you can build a good team around him and win a lot of football games. But I think that they really need to focus on the defense this year. I think that they need to try to probably put free agency on the back burner. I try to bring back Lamar Miller if possible. I consider Reshad Matthews depending on who the coach is and what the system's going to look like. But this team needs to start getting away from free agency. They've got the stars. They've got Tannehill. They've got Jay Ajayi as a young emerging player, possibly Devontae Parker if he's healthy moving forward. I think defensively, you've got obviously 2 of the best players in the game, Reshad Jones and Ndamukong Suh. There's guys that you can build with. Now, there's a lot more that you need, but those are the guys that you're going to focus on and that are untouchable for the next several years. Now it's time to kind of build up that defense. It's going to take some growing pains like we've seen this season, but you got to play the young guys. Add some impact players. I'm not really looking at specific positions, to be honest. Whichever the best players on the board, take them. Because the roster's not good enough to sit there and cherry pick. I think you just need to get great football players. And once you have a bunch of great football players, then you can worry about filling holes here and there.
I will say, I was listening to Ian, and you guys have a conversation there, and one thing a lot of people, I think, don't realize is I feel like that the offense that's been called, particularly the last couple months, has just been so difficult for Ryan Tannehill. And I've been mentioning to you, Lewis, just if you just do a statistical analysis of what Miami does, they are so pass heavy. I think you could put practically any quarterback in the league with the routes that Bill Lazor's been throwing out there and the amount of time that he's passing. The defenses are playing the pass. They're rushing as pass, like the defensive ends are rushing as pass, and the defensive backs and safeties are not as concerned about coming up on the run. And it ends up being very, very difficult as a quarterback to be effective in that scenario. And I see a lot of the passes Tannehill's are throwing. He's trying to, put the ball into tight windows because there's tight coverage on the receivers, whether it's bad routes or they're not getting great separation. Those are difficult throws. And, and this time last year, everybody was harping on Tannehill because of the deep ball. And all I've seen this year is his deep ball looks like it's improved to me. And he's not way off on that. He's had lots of effective deep ball throws this year. I mean, Ian's right. I'd like to see him have a better pocket awareness. I think Ryan Tannehill needs to know maybe when to slide up a little bit more and have a little bit better feel for when the blitz is coming. But if I look at all the other quarterbacks in the league, I see all this anti-Tannehill, but I never see, here's what I would do. Where are you going to get the quarterback? That's my first question to the, Tannehill's terrible. I'm like, well, he's probably at least in the middle of the pack right now in the league. And if you don't have Tannehill, what do you have? Matt Moore's going to be a free agent after this year. I don't think they need to invest a pile of cash into him with their salary cap situation. They're probably going to have to look at bringing in a lower cost veteran, or I'm completely on board with drafting a quarterback to maybe come in, be your number 2 and learn under Tannehill. But this isn't something where it's like, oh well, let's just get rid of Ryan Tannehill and we'll just go get a different quarterback, because the simple fact is it takes time to develop them and they're just not available. You can't just go get a quarterback like that.
And I completely agree with the both of you. I mean, this whole idea of a new quarterback is going to be the magic potion that's going to save the team from eternal mediocrity. Newsflash, everybody: the Dolphins have been mediocre for the past 20 years. Tannehill's only been here for 5, not even 5. This is only his 4th year in the NFL. So sorry to tell you, that's not going to do it. it's going to take a lot more than just a brand new quarterback. How many brand new quarterbacks have we had since our last playoff run? The last time we even made it to the playoffs was 2008 with Chad Pennington, and he was already a proven quarterback, and we would have loved to have him a little longer. His arm fell off, and that was the end of that, and enter Chad Henne, who pretty much fell on his face after being taught to check down every single play. Check down Chad, that was what he called him. So if you need any proof that coaching has a lot to do with a quarterback's development, ask Chad Henne how he feels about checkdowns. So, anyway, I want to bring in another caller. We have a new caller. Caller, reveal yourself, por favor.
Hello.
Hello.
Duke.
Oh, what's up, Duke?
Not much.
So, have you been listening to the show? Do you know what's going on right now?
I just caught the last thing Chad said there.
All right. So, essentially, what we're discussing is, and we had a really good discussion with Ian just now. The new crop of quarterbacks and exactly what it is that we're expecting out of them nowadays. These new college quarterbacks are coming in with super simplified offenses in their heads, and now the learning curve from college to the NFL has become so much larger, and now we're expecting way too much out of these new QBs, Tannehill included, because while his offense at Texas A&M wasn't overly simplified, but he's had a lot to deal with new coaches, new offenses, new schemes, being overcoached, undercoached, and it's just been a mess. And these new quarterbacks coming out of college, I mean, these kids are going to have to take the same amount, if not more so, time than Tannehill's had, because these offenses have become so simplified that the NFL is quickly becoming college 2.0.
Well, my problem with the quarterback position is that I think expectations are a little unreachable. It's everyone wants a quarterback that can come in and play like a star quarterback immediately. The Dolphins fan base included. And I've seen posts and things that talk about, well, replacing Tannehill. We'll go back and look at every draft. The best quarterback class in the past few years was the 2004 class. Go back after that one, from 2005 to, say, 2013. Look at every quarterback drafted total in any round, and you'll be hard-pressed to find 12 names that are the caliber of Tannehill or better. And I'm not talking about QBs that may or may be necessarily just better. No, look at a guy like Matthew Stafford. Some people might consider him better than Tannehill, some may not. But look at all the quarterbacks that have been drafted since that time period. About 12 or so that are Tannehill's caliber. You could probably only name one or two that you could say, all right, I can put this guy on any team in the league, and he makes them immediate Super Bowl contenders. That's it. Every other quarterback on there, they had to build around. Take a guy like Joe Flacco, for example. He's had top 10 rushing offense and top 10 defense every year he's been in the league except for two. In 2013, they went 8-8. He threw, I think, 17 touchdowns, 22 interceptions, had terrible numbers across the board, could not lead the team, had the highest number of pass attempts in his career. The next year, defense improved, rushing offense improved, and went to the playoffs. This year, defense and rushing offense went downhill. He was on pace for even more attempts. Team just got his third win last night, and it took a crazy play at the end of the game to get it. So, I mean, he's the guy that's won a Super Bowl, and he's had to have a lot of support around him to do so. And he's the guy, I know a lot of fans say, I'll take just like the Tannehill. So, I mean, that's the kind of guys you're drafting, especially now. And so my question would be, if you're going to replace Tannehill, how are you going to do it? I mean, the only quarterbacks in the league that you would have a chance at, that's a proven guy that would be better right now, would be a guy like Philip Rivers. His team has 3 wins. He needs support too, And if you trade for him, by the time you get your first-round picks back, he's going to be washed up. There's nobody in the league that you're going to get. Then it goes to the draft. Now, I'm not started watching draft prospects or anything. I usually don't watch quarterback. But is there one guy in the draft that you can say, all right, if we could draft him, Miami's going to be an immediately better team. He's going to go from 5 to 8 wins and take Miami to 12 wins immediately. Doesn't matter how bad the offensive line is. Doesn't matter if they only rush for 12 yards a game. This guy is going to do it from day one. And remember, that's what you've got to have with his fan base. Because I don't know who's out there right now. I know a lot of people are big on Goff from California. First time he throws a deep pass and it's not completed, what are you going to hear? First time he throws an interception, what are you going to hear? It's the same thing. If a guy comes in and he does not play like a cross between Marino and Rodgers and Brady from the very first snap, he's worthless and you get rid of him. So, I mean, is that guy out there? I don't know. And I'm not opposed to, if you can upgrade from Tannehill, that's great. I'm a Dolphins fan, not a Tannehill fan. But chances he's finding that guy, I think I figured out the numbers one time, you're looking at maybe a 4 to 5% chance.
And that's pretty much how I've been feeling about this whole thing. And Ian, I know Duke has said he hasn't been looking, but you have been watching quarterback prospects for the past few couple weeks now. And the report is the Dolphins are interested in Paxton Lynch. Have you watched anything about him? How would you evaluate him?
Yeah, so I covered that conference last year for Optimum Scouting, so I actually got a lot of looks at him, and I was kind of like the first person actually pretty excited about him, at least on Twitter. I know like some even NFL scouts weren't even thinking that he was a prospect. So he for me entered the year I think as my number 3 quarterback, and so like I was definitely early on that, and I was kind of fortunate because he happened to actually make like those giant strides that you want to see from a guy. But now he's getting like top 5 hype, and I'm selling that. I actually think he's very close to where Tannehill was as a prospect. I think he's a guy where he's a long-term kind of project where you need like 2 or 3 years to really get him into an offense, because he runs a very simple offense at Memphis, and even their coach talked about it, how they simplified the offense for him entering this year, and he's really kind of taken off because of that. He's got mechanical things that he needs to work on. Again, mentally, he's nowhere close to where he needs to be a quality NFL starter. Now, do I think he can get there? Absolutely. But I'll also mention too that I've heard that's what Armando put out there was I mean, that wasn't necessarily take that with a grain of salt. I'll say that.
Well, this early, we take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, because they don't know who the next coach is. It was more, I think, of a statement that they want to see more from Tannehill than it is about Lynch. I'll definitely say that.
And you also brought up the whole simplified offense thing, and that's, again, we brought this up just a little bit earlier, and this is pretty much the reason why there's been a learning curve in the NFL for so long. And I mean, and also something that you brought up, but you didn't really make it a factor in this conversation in particular. The footwork of quarterbacks has gotten sloppy in recent years.
Yeah, because they're the goal of most of these college quarterbacks, especially, and even the NFL is trending this way, where it's just more about efficiency, where you want to get the ball out as quickly as you can to get the ball into your playmaker's hands. So what that does is it ingrains bad habits, and that's why you don't always want to play quarterbacks early, because the more you play them, as long as they're continuing those bad habits, the harder it is to be able to get that out of them down the line when they are suddenly, hopefully, improving, or they need to improve before you move on from them. And college guys, that's kind of what the name of the game is, and Lynch is terrible about that. He almost never steps into his passes, and now he's got a strong enough arm to get away with it, but that's going to be an issue in the NFL level because, again, passing windows are much smaller.
And I think, again, as I mentioned earlier, I'm completely on board with getting a quarterback to be number 2. And obviously, if he's in the top 5 range, he's probably not going to be somebody Miami could realistically get. But, I'm okay with, if there is a prospect out there that has the talent level, the arm, but it's raw. I mean, I'm completely comfortable with Miami taking a quarterback to develop. I think you're making a mistake in the NFL to not always be developing a quarterback that can realistically be a starter. I know they're hard to get, but Miami will definitely be in a scenario where they need that. But it's hard to say how long it takes to develop those guys, and I'm kind of on the fence back and forth. I understand what Ian's saying about you don't want to play them too early, but at the same time, I think it's a trade-off on how fast can you get them ready versus how riding the bench versus playing. So,
well, that's
one question that I've seen asked is, how many guys that get drafted truly get developed? I mean, how many of those 5th round guys get drafted and stay with the team for 2 or 3 seasons and then develop into something? I mean, probably the closest thing I could think of would be Matt Flynn, and he's not starting anywhere.
No, but he keeps getting contracts, which is a credit to his agent.
Well, I think teams are growing more impatient now than ever. They just want to quick
Efren, you're kind of cracking in and out, man.
Oh, sorry, but yeah, I just think
Efren, hang on, man. Efren, I'm gonna hang up and call me back so I can bring you back in. That'll work out.
All right.
I think let's see how it goes. I think one thing I was going to say is with quarterbacks, I always had this golf analogy. I'm not a very good golfer, and I was golfing with a guy one time, and his advice was when you're out playing golf and you're actually like competitively playing it, you play with what you have. If you can't hit this shot or you can't hit that club, don't use it because you can't do it. And I think that's you get in the NFL, and I think, again, I've been saying this for a while, but teams get so focused on their system and how their system is supposed to work, and I think they lose focus on what do they have as a player. And I think quarterback is so important when you look at that, and you got to realize, well, how effectively can this guy at this point in his career read the defenses? How accurate is he with these throws? And you've got to know from practice where his strengths and weaknesses are. And, how about putting a game plan together that works with it? Ryan Tannehill obviously can run, and I think there's nothing wrong with it. Obviously, you can't do it all game, but there's nothing wrong with having situations where you are only doing 1 or 2 reads, and then you're supposed to tuck it and take off. And obviously, you can't do that all game, but, it just feels like Miami this season more than ever has been trying to fit a square peg in a round hole with several positions. And, sometimes you got to format your game plan around the talent levels that you have and format your game plans that suit the strengths of your players. And I think a mistake a lot of teams in this league make is they're trying to always develop players to fit their system. They're trying to draft players to fit their system versus maybe just look at talent and then figure out how to utilize that talent, if that makes sense.
Well, it's much more difficult to change your personal scheme to the player's talent than it is to well, I wouldn't say it's harder or easier. I think it takes more effort on the part of the coaches. I guess we can say that much. And Efren, testing 1, 2, 3, bro. What was it that you wanted to say?
Yeah, is this any better?
Yeah, much.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was just touching on the impatience and how you don't have much time anymore. People, I feel like development has been pushed to the side, and the results are at the forefront.
Yeah.
A lot of the good quarterbacks that Ian mentioned before that are in their 30s, they all kind of started with effort. Ben won a Super Bowl in his career, and and Phillip Rivers, he started out kind of having to agree.
Android. You sound like an android again, Efren. I don't know what's up with your internet today. It wasn't doing this earlier.
Oh, well. All right. That's fine.
Sorry, man.
Carry on, guys.
No, it just came back. I don't know.
Hey, Louis.
All right, well.
Hey, before Ian takes off, I was wondering if we could ask him what his thoughts are going to be, how he sees the Dolphins changing with Bill Lazor going. I mean, I've been pretty critical of Bill Lazor, and I know he has been to an extent with the Lazor's route schemes he runs. He bunches receivers together frequently. And I just wanted to have Ian touch on that because I think it's a lot of a thing that fans overlook a lot of times are the routes that were being run in and how Tannehill is being used, and maybe just get his quick comments on how he sees things changing with Bill Lazor being gone, if at all.
Yeah, so I've been pretty critical as well. I mean, obviously I use a lot of screenshots and GIFs and such when I have the time to on Twitter, more so last year than this year. But it's definitely created a small margin for error, not only for Tannehill, but also for his receivers. We've been seeing a lot of receivers just get hit hard over the middle. And that's just because safeties are just roaming and linebackers are just kind of sitting around waiting until, that ball is thrown. And they know where guys are heading. And that's why we kind of saw against the Jets. You saw guys that have had bad 2015 seasons like Darren Walls and Antonio Cromartie, who's been terrible, running routes better than receivers. And Miami has a decent receiving core. But the problem is that they use the same formations, they run the same exact routes, week in, week out. There's no creativity to the offense. There's no change ever in terms of scheme. Unfortunately, though, I'm not sure we're going to see a lot of change after Lazor's gone. It's kind of similar to when Philbin and Coyle was fired. Ultimately, it's very difficult to change something with just 5 weeks left in the season and very little practice time. I think what you're probably going to see is a little bit more balance, which is what we all want. I said it for 2 years. Bill Lazor. It's Bill Lazor not running the ball. It's not Joe Philbin. Bill Lazor came to Miami as an offensive coordinator because he got full offensive control when he came. He had that exclusive right in his contract. Obviously, Philbin could recommend things, and you could run things by him. But ultimately, if Lazor wanted to do something, he had the power to do it. Now that's gone, and Campbell recognized it, got rid of him. Probably took him a little too long to recognize it. He probably should have just known from his first year that that's who he is. But now it's going to be a nice opportunity for Taylor, even though I don't think that he's he's definitely not extremely qualified for it, but it's a good opportunity for him to get in the job, execute what the Dolphins franchise wants, which is going to be hopefully maybe open it up a little bit more, maybe go a little bit more vertical earlier in the game. That should create room in the running game, and it should also hopefully highlight Tannehill's strengths, because whenever they've gone more vertical in games, Tannehill does really well, and the receivers do really well, because that's how the team was built. The team was not built to do 3 to 5 yard slants and screens in the backfield all game long. That's not productive offense. They're never going to build a good offense around that. Tannehill's one of the more accurate short to intermediate passers in the NFL, and he's like you guys mentioned earlier, he is doing well in the deep ball this year. It's time to let this offense open up a little bit. Let him do some things that, again, you're not going to really change route patterns so much, but you can vary the play calling, and you can kind of mix things up to make it not so obvious when you're going to be passing and where you're going to be passing.
Before you go, Ian, just one last thing. I've been asking pretty much every guest that I've had on the show, and pretty much anybody I've been on other people's shows, I've asked this question. Given the choice, would you, and I'm going to disqualify play calling, would you rather have this new and refined Tannehill in Mike Sherman's offensive playbook, or keep it in Lazor's?
If I could have Sherman's playbook with this set of playmakers, I think we would have seen a different result from Sherman's tenure. I don't think Sherman's scheme was bad. I think that Miami's talent around Tannehill was worse than what we have now. What we're seeing now, I think right now, yes, they're young, and you kind of see guys being on the different page. Sometimes Tannehill will throw an out route, receiver will run inside, or on a dig or whatever. That's stuff that'll come in time and familiarity, but I do think Sherman's scheme was better. He certainly did a lot better in the red zone, where it really matters, and I think now is where the talent itself could carry the team better throughout the 20s, which was an issue with the Sherman era. But I think if he would have had a guy like Lamar Miller playing like how he's playing, if they would have had guys like Reshad Matthews, Jordan Cameron, who's disappeared the last 5 weeks because of the coaching change, I think Sherman's offense would have yielded much better results, and people wouldn't have been so worried about go.
Yeah, that's the one thing I would not have enjoyed coming back. But well, we take what we can get, I guess. Though, ladies and gentlemen, that'd be a lesson to you. Don't always assume that the alternative is better. So whether it's quarterbacks or offensive coordinators, We're learning that the hard way this year. Ian, thanks for joining us, man. I know you got to get out of here, so we really appreciate you coming on with us and discussing some quarterback talk with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right. See you, Ian. So that was Ian Wharton of the Bleacher Report. You can follow him on Twitter at NFL Film Study. And he said a lot of things that I really liked, guys. I mean, let's be honest. Let's be honest here. If we're going to talk about this, we got to talk about it openly and honestly. Again, like Ian said, does Ryan Tannehill have his own set of problems? Yes. But coaching has really done a number on what Tannehill has done. And before anybody accuses me once again of making excuses for this guy, it is not an excuse. It is a reality. You cannot assume that these guys are going to come in and just succeed no matter what they are given. Again, elite quarterbacks. These are the only quarterbacks in the NFL who you can look at really and say, well, these guys are carrying their team. And even some of those elites are not able to carry their team right now. Brock Osweiler right now is being considered better than Peyton Manning. And even if that is true, and I don't know that for sure yet because from what I've seen from Osweiler does not tell me elite quarterback. It tells me that his team around him is making him play a lot better. That defense really helped him win against the Patriots, who were previously unbeaten. But it's already about Brock Osweiler, and I think that's an extreme injustice to the defensive players of the Denver Broncos. So, and even if Osweiler does turn out to be better, and because he does turn out to be elite, let's not forget who he was sitting behind for how long has Peyton been in Denver already? I don't even remember anymore. These guys have had a chance to develop. They've had a chance to sit and learn from the best of the best. Peyton is one of the last of a dying breed of quarterback, and pretty soon we're going to be looking around the NFL and thinking to ourselves, what happened to the elite quarterbacks? They just don't exist anymore. And it's true, they don't, because pro offenses are better than these half and half spread, half pro college hybrid offenses that we're seeing in the NFL today. It's garbage, guys. And if I could really use a word, it is pure garbage.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit to that. I mean, if you watch the offense that the Dolphins run a lot of with that shotgun, whether you call it the pistol formations and some of the read option stuff, that's a real common thing you see in college watching it. And I think in the NFL, it's starting to get figured out to an extent. And, my case with that is the Eagles. I mean, they're obviously having a very difficult season as well. And I think that teams are starting to figure that offense out a little bit. And you can't it's not always a system that creates things. There's systems can create mismatches, but you always got to stay dynamic. I think that's the lesson is you can't get complacent and just assume it's my plays that I put together are what's winning. And so I think there is a lot to that. And these quarterbacks coming in is it's rare. It's extremely rare that quarterbacks come in NFL ready. And I think I'd be 100% on board with Miami picking up a plan B to Ryan Tannehill to start developing. So if, in the next year or two, Tannehill is clearly the problem, then they got to replace him or they'll have a guy waiting in the wings. But I don't think it's realistic to say, let's just move up, try to get a quarterback with the top 5 picks and expect him to come in and have different results. I think that would be it'd be crazy. And even the quarterbacks that did well as rookies, whether you want to say Marino or Elway or any of these guys,
they didn't do well.
Though they didn't do exceptional, and they came into very good football teams for the most part. I mean, when Marino was playing on the Dolphins, they had a very good veteran offensive line. They had a very good defense. And it's much easier because the quarterback isn't being asked to do maybe as much as what you see guys like Tom Brady doing. And it takes a while for them to get there. And so, again, I don't believe Tannehill is a problem. I'm with you, Lewis. I'm not claiming that he is the guy, and I'm on board with him that he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks, in the league in the next few years. But I don't think.
Chad, just to be honest here, if the quality of quarterbacks continues to decline, maybe he will be one of the best in the league in a few years.
I honestly think he is going to be a solid quarterback, coming down the road here. He's made some bad plays at times. I mean, he's had a few bad pick sixes that aren't typical of him, but I don't see a quarterback out there that's lost throwing horrible passes into bad coverages. any more than other quarterbacks around the league. And so, in particular, the way the defenses are playing their routes, they're playing pass, and that makes it that much harder. So I'm kind of on the fence with him right now. Like I said, I'm okay with drafting a quarterback to come in here, but I absolutely don't think the answer is to let's just get rid of Tannehill.
And Efren, let's see if we can hear you again, man. So testing 1, 2. You had something to say?
Any better?
Right now it is.
Yeah. That is one turn in. I mean,
so close. Okay, what Efren wanted to say, ladies and gentlemen, was that Tannehill is not getting his help because the NFL he's actually second in the NFL in wide receiver drops. So yeah, that does have a lot to do with it. But all quarterbacks have drops. Now, I'm not saying that Tannehill is. That's again not an excuse, people. It's just a reality. It's repeating a stat that is actually in the NFL. He's also like first in losses in losses for lost yards per sack. So let's not act. I'm not acting like he's the savior or he's this guy who's gonna be able to. It's sad. I have to keep making this disclaimer. It really is. He's not the guy, but he's not the problem either. Stop looking for another superstar guy who's gonna come in and immediately ball out and make things happen. It's just not gonna happen that way. But anyway, Duke, you've been pretty quiet for a while. Do you have anything to say, man?
Well, after the game last night, I think it was, I don't remember the name of the show. It has Merrill Hodge and Ron Jaworski on it. They were talking about plays and things, and they got off to talking about Brock Osweiler, and they said the best part about the game-winning run was he audibled into the play. And if I had more of a temper, I would have thrown my remote. I was like, this guy's is starting his second game against the Patriots. He's already able to audible, and you're telling me Ryan Tannehill can't? Don't give me that check with me stuff. That's not audible. It just I don't know, hit a button that I didn't like. So I just think there's a lot of stuff that goes on around the quarterback that people just don't want to pay attention to. And whenever you bring things into discussion, it always falls back to stuff like, well, he didn't, third down completions or passer rating or some other garbage or something. I'm like, I read that one article today. The average third down for Miami this season is 3rd and 8. Are you kidding me? 3rd and 8? I mean, how can a team expect to be successful in this 3rd and 8? Against the Patriots, they had 8 or 9 3rd and 10 plus. I mean, it was pretty much. I was on the site Sunday and I was joking around. Anytime there was an offensive penalty, I was pretty much like, this drive's over. Yeah, that's how it's going to be. Wide receiver screens, little sweet toss. Those are wasted downs. Whenever I see the ball snap and Tannehill turn and throw it immediately to the wide receiver, my first thought is, you could have just taken a knee and done the same thing. What's the point? Just a lot of stupid stuff going on, but it always falls back on the quarterback. Now, on his interception of the day, that was a late throw. I saw pictures today. The route combination was not great at all, but he could have been on time to throw. But there's so much that he gets blamed for. I'm almost looking at him like, you know what? I hope they trade him to a better situation just for him. I don't know. It's just this team. I'm to the point now. I'm pretty much done with the season. I'm done with this team for the season. If they win, great. If they don't, I don't care. It's just disappointing to watch all this stuff. And when it's so blatantly, it's not like they're out here getting beat by a better team. When you go into the Patriots on Thursday night and get beat, that's understandable. When Ryan Fitzpatrick throws 4 touchdowns against you, something's wrong. Whenever you gain 12 yards of rushing had a game, and that's the second time this season that you've had like such a small total. I mean, I don't know. I don't see how anyone can just look at that and say, yeah, if we had Aaron Rodgers, this team would be great. It's just not. They're bad. They're all the way bad. The defense gave up 38 points to the Jets. I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling now because that's just how I feel about it. It's just.
Hey, Rand.
Well, I still.
It's comedic.
It is. It's extremely hard to watch, but I've been kind of stating this at times on Twitter. I believe our defense. It has its issues, but I believe it's a middle of the road right now. I don't believe our defense is horrifically bad, and I think it's our offense that's horrifically bad. And I mean, you can't expect the defense to continually stop any NFL caliber team when your offense does what the Dolphins. I mean, they do so many 3-and-outs. And, I started off tonight, I know you weren't on here, dude, just saying the tone of the game was set when the Jets went for it on fourth and the defense stopped them on the Jets' own 40, and Miami immediately comes in and goes 3-and-out. And that's just so disheartening. It's just, I don't know how to describe the offense other than just completely inept right now. And they've done so many wasted plays. And I am going to go out on a limb right now, and I believe the team's going to do extremely better with Lazor gone. I think the play calling made absolutely no sense. And I've had issues with the play calling since he's been here. I liked the read option stuff as being innovative, but it makes no sense to me why he absolutely refused to use the advantages on 3rd and short, push forward with Ryan Tannehill, or when you're on the goal line inside the 2 and first down, just slam the football in there with Ajayi or whoever, just get the touchdown. And he consistently would pass. So I think the new coach, I understand that you can't install a new offense in a week, but I do feel like they'll utilize Lamar Miller and Ajayi much more, and the tight ends even, to help create some balance. And I don't think the Dolphins are a good team, but they're playing bad teams coming up here. I mean, the Ravens are not a good football team. The Chargers are not a good football team. And so I won't be surprised at all if Miami gets some wins together here just by actually going back to a fundamentally sound offense and getting away from what I think was literally just insanity with what Lazor was doing.
I mean, look at, if you want to add on to that, you had a player come in to play center who's never played center at all, at least in his college career. He's your only guy because you keep cutting Tim Brenner just back and forth all the time. Now he's gone. So that's the only option. The guy has had low snap after low snap, bad snap after bad snap, and you stay in shotgun. I mean,
that's a great point.
Quote they always attribute to Einstein as insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I mean, how about? I mean, to me, that's not changing your play calling. That's not changing fundamentals. So basically, saying, all right, this guy's struggling with the shotgun. Let's just run a bunch of stuff under center. That doesn't mean you have to abandon the shotgun, but use it less. I have one person on our site say that, well, the offensive coordinator has to do that because Tannehill and Miller don't function well out of the I formation. And I'm like, I mean, whatever. Just do something. But don't sit there and just keep watching Tannehill have to kick the ball off the dirt and then say, well, if he was a better quarterback, he would have magically thrown some guy open and, ran around in the backfield for 10 seconds and then threw the ball to somebody. Just don't. Just be smart. And that told me that they're not smart. That's just ignorance.
Rich Gannon actually said on Twitter, and this is calling us out, and unfortunately there are times when I feel like this might be true, but I'm not going to say outright because I'm not going to hate Stephen Ross for making bad decisions when he doesn't really know things, and that's just who he is. He's not a football guru like Jerry Jones. He just likes football. But Rich Gannon basically called the Dolphins out and said that they were a clown show organization, and a lot of people have been agreeing with this assessment just based on the fact that the Dolphins are a mess right now. They need to figure out a way to make things work. I think this season is pretty much done, and really anybody who thinks otherwise at this point is really looking to try and fool themselves. 4-7. the offense, the AFC is not so bad that there aren't going to be other teams that are going 9-7. Probably 2 teams in our division who have already beaten us, and that's going to keep us out as is. Even if the Dolphins somehow manage to run the table, they're probably not going to make the playoffs simply based on the whole idea of the AFC East has gotten us beat all over the place. So this season, as far as I'm concerned, is done. I don't want to call the Dolphins a clown show because I just feel like the only sin that Stephen Ross has done is that he's listening to the wrong people. And I'm not going to get mad at him for not knowing who to talk to because, I mean, like, how often do you get lucky and find the right guy that you need to discuss football with? I mean, you don't find an Ozzie Newsome running around all the time every day. That just doesn't happen. Now, you can get mad at Ross for making decisions that he shouldn't have been making. You can blame Ross for moving Dennis Hickey out of the way or whatever, stuff like that. But you can't get mad at him for other stuff.
I agree
well,
with you, Lewis.
I think part of the problem with Ross was the timing of everything that he does. Is if he had gotten rid of Jeff Ireland when he got rid of Sperano, I think it would have looked a little different. But when you kept Ireland and brought in Philbin and got rid of Ireland, and now you got rid of Philbin, it's kind of like he's just figuring things kind of out on his own, which is good. But I think it looks worse than what it really is. And I think a lot of people said, well, if he'd have got rid of Ireland and Philbin at the same time, and I understand that was Philbin's second season. You don't necessarily want to get rid of a coach after 2 seasons, but in my opinion, and we talked about this on our other podcast, I think there's enough talent on this team that with a good coach, forget the front office for a minute, with a good coach, this team could be a playoff team. Now, yeah, they've got some issues. A lot of teams have some issues, but bring in a little more talent. I mean, they've done well with their contracts. I mean, how many times can you keep signing these big-name guys to big contracts and keep doing it? Well, they're doing it because they have people that can manipulate these contracts. But they need to get a good coach in here who knows what to do. Honestly, I think Philbin and his stuff was just so bad that they've made the Dolphins front office look bad.
No, I agree completely. I'm not on the anti-Ross bandwagon. I understand he's said a few things that maybe make him look a little foolish at times in the media, but I don't see him being a meddling owner like I would say like Jerry Jones, where he's like.
Well, he is the guy in Dallas. Like, he's GM.
Well, that's my point. Is I think Jerry Jones. I'm one of these guys that questions whether he really knows what he's doing as a GM, but that's what he does in Dallas. And then you have guys that are completely unloyal to the community. And my examples would be, look what's going on in St. Louis and San Diego and in Oakland, where those teams are just working on who will give me the most money, and they'll just leave town. And so I do respect that at least Ross has kept the team in Miami. He's made significant contributions. Whether you question how he went about it or not, that's fine. But the fact is the team's in Miami. And I don't see anything from Ross but a guy that's trying to do everything in his power to get the team doing well. And so that's all I ask from an owner. I can't get on board with saying they've made some bad decisions, which I think goes starting back to Ireland. I question whether Tannenbaum's been making great decisions. It's a little early for me to give him a fair analysis, but the coaching has been horrific. And part of it is they need a head coach that's actually capable of running at least one half of the team, the offense or the defense. And, the reality is what we saw with Joe Philbin is not capable of being a play calling offensive coordinator. He never had that responsibility in Green Bay. And he was basically at the mercy of Sherman and then Lazor in Miami. It was those guys had to do well as offensive coordinators for Philbin to do well. And that's the same thing that Campbell Campbell is happening with him right now is I don't know that Dan Campbell is capable of being an offensive coordinator, and I definitely don't think he's capable of being a defensive coordinator. And when I look at the coaches around the league that I consider the good coaches, like, if you look at Bill Belichick, he's fully capable of completely running the defense on that team if he wants to. That's why I like Sean Payton, because I feel like Sean Payton is fully capable of being an offensive coordinator if he wants to, because I think it's hard for the guys to be on top, in managing coordinators if they aren't competent coordinators themselves. And so Miami has kind of missed the boat on coaching. And I think, ironically, the coach I really wanted bad for Miami was Jim Harbaugh, whether you like him or not. And Stephen Ross did everything he could to chase him when he had Sperano, and then everybody hammered Ross for it. And I'm thinking, that's what I expect my owner to do. If you can get a really good coach, you chase him. That's how Miami got Don Shula, back in the day. You gotta, if you get your hands on a coach, you go get him. And so I'm really hopeful that, as we come into this offseason, that's where it's critical. And my biggest concern, if I do want to criticize Ross, is you may have to put that candidate ahead of Tannenbaum or Hickey or whoever your management staff is. And you may just have to say, look, I want this coach. I'm going to have to do what it takes from the managerial control of the team to make sure he comes here, because that's why we ended up with Philbin in the first place. Is there simply wasn't coaches that wanted to come here and coach under Jeff Ireland. And so I don't know how many coaches are going to want to come here and coach under Tannenbaum. So my biggest fear is we're going to end up with somebody like Mangini because he wants to reunite with Tannenbaum, and we're going to go that route versus maybe go after a very qualified head coaching candidate.
Well, it's possible that Tannenbaum has the connections that we need to get a top candidate. I mean, what you're describing, Chad, is exactly what everybody is mad at Stephen Ross for doing, taking over for his football guys and saying, I want to do this instead. Stephen Ross hasn't shown that he can handle that kind of football decision, and that is exactly why Mike Tannenbaum is hired now. I think the best thing that Ross can do, at least in the eyes of the fan base at this point, because what's done is done, is to just let Tannenbaum take over and do everything. Ross needs to step back and say, Mike, go for it. And for better or worse, Tannenbaum is either going to fall or he's going to rise. And if it turns out that Ross messed up again, guess who everybody's going to be mad at for getting in Tannenbaum's way and that sort of thing. I mean, everybody wants a scapegoat. And if what we're doing is we're being mad at the owner now, if we're mad at the owner, then, ladies and gentlemen, you might as well find a new team to cover and be fans of, because if you're going to be mad at the owner and say that the owner is the reason the Dolphins are bad, then get comfortable, because they're going to be bad for a very, very long time. I, for one, do not think Stephen Ross is the problem in Miami. He's done so much for the Miami Dolphins. He's used his own money to renovate the stadium, make it a brand new place. The canopy, whether you mock the canopy, you're going to be enjoying it when you go to Dolphins games next year when the sun isn't beating down on you and you get to laugh at the opponent's bench because they're in the sun while the Dolphins are all nice and cool, and so are you guys in the stands. You can mock the canopy, fine, go ahead, do that. You're going to be enjoying it next year, so you can mock it if you want. I guess that's your prerogative, but I look at other owners around the league. I mean, look at the Cleveland Browns, look at the Oakland Raiders, look at all these guys. There are several owners in the league who are a lot worse than Stephen Ross. And I've heard people say that Ross is the worst owner in sports. All I have to say is, Jeffrey Loria, thank you, good night.
Yeah, you covered it well, Louis. I mean, it's like I said, I'm not saying that I feel like Stephen Ross has made the greatest decisions. Obviously, they brought in some people that didn't do well in management and coaching positions, and I hope he does better. But my point being is I don't see him as a terrible owner, because at least he's keeping the team here and he's doing everything he can do to make them better. For whether he's succeeding at it, I mean, I know that's at some point you always want to blame the owner because they're not getting better, but I think he's doing everything in his power he can to get this team better. I don't think he's trying to just sell tickets and doesn't really care if the team wins or loses. I think he's trying very hard, and we'll see. I mean, again, it's going to be interesting off season. I'm not convinced that Tannenbaum is safe right now. I think Ross is tired of losing. Like I was mentioned earlier, that he's going to take a beating here because they front loaded that schedule with away games, and now the team's all but eliminated from playoff contention, and all the home games there's going to be nobody show up. And so I think Stephen Ross is getting tired of having a team that's not that marketable, and he wants a winner. And so I don't know how much leash he's giving Tannenbaum right now. And I don't know what decisions were Tannenbaum's. Was it Tannenbaum or was it Ross that wanted to keep Philbin here for this year? And because clearly none of the current coaching staff was Tannenbaum's move. That's back to Ireland's time with the staff. So it'll be interesting to see what Tannenbaum had his mark on and what he doesn't, and what Stephen Ross thinks about all that.
And
one thing I want to say about that is, and Lewis, you're there in Spartanburg, is I've seen the Miami media talk about, well, nobody shows up for the home games. I've seen fans talk about nobody shows up for the home games. I'm like, you know what? It made me laugh when I saw tweets from the beat writers like, wow, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of Dolphins fans here at the Panthers camp. I don't understand. I'm like, and I was like, we are everywhere. Like, I don't live in a big town in North Carolina, and there's Dolphins fans all over the place. The night they played the Patriots Thursday night game, I had to go to the grocery store. I went in my jersey and my shorts. I walked in the store. There wasn't even 40 people in the grocery store, and I saw 3 Dolphins fans. So, I mean, that's just how it is. I would love to be able to tell Stephen Ross, like, you know what? I know you see those empty seats in the stadium, and it looks bad, but you should feel good because the Dolphins fans are we're a national fan base.
International.
It's just we don't all live in Miami. We can't go to the games. But if you've been at that preseason game, I mean, half the people at Bank of America Stadium were Dolphin fans. I mean, when the Dolphins score a touchdown, just as loud as when the Panthers score. I mean, it's just that's how it is. So, I see those guys complaining about the EPC. I'm like, there's people other places watching. So, maybe if Ross would pitch in and let us all have buy seats for all the fans who aren't in town, sure.
Like treat Spartanburg to a free Dolphins game. You'll see how fast the seats fill up.
No, I think he's got I do agree that it's a good broad fan base around the nation, but I'm sure Stephen Ross wants to have his stadium sold out, and I really feel like he will. I don't think this is a team that if they start winning and they actually do become contenders, I do think he'll sell that stadium out. I think there's a lot of people that follow the team, but it just for a lot of people, it's they're looking for that at this point before they get too involved in buying season tickets or things like that, because the team just has been mediocre for a long time, and it's something that nobody really wants to go watch a team that's not very good. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
When the team wins, everybody's happy. When the team loses, nobody's happy. I actually had a dude tell me today that they were called by the Miami Dolphins marketing people and getting ready to renew their season tickets. He said that he told me that as soon as he heard that it was from the Dolphins, he hung the phone up. So this is what happens when a team loses. It's sad. It's awful that it's become this way, but I mean, it's the reality of the situation. The Dolphins are not winning, and so the fan base is not happy. Everybody is a problem. Everybody is the reason that the Dolphins are losing, and we can analyze it till the cows come home. In all honesty, but there's many problems everywhere. There are many people that are being blamed for things that really is not their fault. I don't blame Ross for not knowing who to trust. I mean, that's how many times in our lives have we been burned by people that we thought we could trust, and it wound up being a bad idea? Let's be honest here, guys. How many times?
Probably a lot more for me since I'm older.
But it's happened. We've trusted people. We've thought, well, this guy is our friend. We can trust them. We can listen to their sage advice, and we'll be okay to go. And then we find out later, that was a really bad idea. So next time, let's not do that. Lesson learned. Stephen Ross hasn't found that guy. Maybe it's Tannenbaum. I don't know if it's Tannenbaum. It may not be Tannenbaum, but we don't know.
This goes back to the coach. I mean, you look at the Saints organization, and I don't know how old Chad is, but I can remember a time when the Saints were like, if they showed up on your schedule, that was an automatic victory for your team. I mean, they were just they were the Washington Generals to everyone else, the Harlem Globetrotters. Then they bring in Drew Brees, bring in Sean Payton, and suddenly they're a contender. And people talk about Ross being a clueless owner. I mean, I would say I don't think that what the guy that owns the Patriots, can't think of his name right now. I wouldn't say that he's so much more of a knowledgeable football guy than Steve Ross, but he has Bill Belichick, who knows what he's doing, and so it makes sense. But I mean, if you look at Bill Belichick's draft record, I mean, he's not some elite drafter. He's not out there picking up talent every which way. I don't think he's drafted. I think Edelman's the best receiver he's ever drafted, and that was a 7th-round pick.
That's not Chad's a little busy, man. He forgot to mute his mic. Keep going.
So I mean, if let's say Campbell's out, they bring in I'm just gonna pick a name out of hat. I say Adam Gase.
Okay.
Let's say they bring him in from Chicago. And he knows what he's doing. He gets the best out of his players. He knows how to properly use guys. And suddenly the Dolphins go 11-5. And let's say the next year after that they go something in that range, 10-6, something like that. Nobody's going to be talking about Stephen Ross. Nobody's going to be saying, oh, this or that. It's because he had a coach that made him look good. And right now, I mean, he's had, since Ross has been here, the only thing I think is a true blemish on his record was the Jim Harbaugh situation where I think maybe he just did not realize how public that was going to be. And then he had to basically give the apology contract to Sperano. And I'll be honest, I think if Ryan Tannehill was on the 2010 team, I think they win. I think they go to the playoffs.
Well, I've always thought that.
That was a decent team. They weren't great, but they had enough talent on that team to win games, and they were held back by Chad Henne. So I mean, aside from that, it's just because the Dolphins just haven't won. And then then his first hire is Joe Philbin, who by now is pretty much, I mean, he's not the worst coach ever by any means, but he's on that list of just coaches who weren't very good. And as he brings in the next guy and he's not very good, then people are going to keep complaining. But as soon as they find the right coach, and I said this on our other podcast, I don't care who he is, as long as it's somebody who knows what they're doing, can maximize talent. I mean, Bill Belichick got rid of Revis this offseason, got rid of Browner, got rid of whoever that other guy was that played a lot, Arrington. I can't think that was who it was. Brought in that Malcolm Butler, and he's turned that defense is playing well because he's a great coach. He knows how to maximize talent out of players. He's one of the few people that can do that. If you bring in a guy that can maximize talent, knows what he's doing, knows how to make adjustments, not at halftime, but make adjustments after the first drive. So, well, they're doing this, let's do this. You bring in that guy, suddenly the Dolphins look much better. They win games. Stephen Ross looks like a great owner. It's that simple. Because it happens with every. I mean, how many people are complaining about Jerry Jones hanging on with Jason Garrett? Oh, he's being too loyal. He shouldn't do that. They're terrible. Blah blah blah. He stuck faith in him. They had a winning season last year. Looked like a genius. So, good coach. All the situations going to make the owner look better. If that's simple.
If you had your choice, Duke, and we're going to get ready to wrap this show up. We've been going for a while now. If you had your choice at this point, who's the coach in 2016 and why?
I mean, I don't know who's out there. I don't know who's available.
Well, we know we've heard names. So, out of the names that we've heard,
I like Adam Gase, and the reason I'm going to say that is because he has taken the Chicago offense, and we've had offensive guys for a while, but he took the Chicago offense. And if you look at that team last year with whoever the coach, that's the offensive coordinator of Baltimore, Jay Cutler looked like a dud. Looked like everyone's like, "Well, you need to cut Jay Cutler. This offense is bad." Look at all these playmakers. Like, get rid of Brandon Marshall. They're not a good team, but he has that offense playing a lot better. And to me, he seems like a kind of guy that knows how to maximize the talent that he has.
But he's an offensive-minded coach. So, do you think he has the capability of finding somebody who can do defense?
I mean, we don't know that, but I think one of the defense is a big area of need. The free agency is going to be key there, but you've got enough building blocks on offense. I think the offense. I think a guy like Tannehill helps entice coaches to want to come here, but I think the defense can too, because you've got Sue, you've got Jones, Jenkins, you've got some guys you can build around. So I think I think he's good enough coach to be successful. He'll find the right people.
How about you, Chad? If you had your pick.
Well, if you're going to remember a year ago, Lewis, when before Philbin got renewed, I threw a name out there that everybody's been laughed at me at the time, and I threw Mike Shula out, not just because I think he's a competent offensive coordinator. I think that he brings a lot of tradition, and it would really excite the fan base for Stephen Ross. So he wouldn't be my top candidate. I'm just pointing out that the Panthers are undefeated right now, and their offense seems to be one of the better ones in the league right now without elite wide receivers there. So I like him as a possibility. Other than Mike Shula, I really still think Sean Payton is the best candidate. That's who I would take first. I know there's possibly compensation involved. I don't know what's going to happen with him in New Orleans, but I do believe he's probably the most competent offensive coordinator out there, as well as a ton of head coaching experience. He's won a Super Bowl. He's played in a lot of big games, and I think Drew Brees flourished with Sean Payton. Drew Brees was not considered an elite quarterback prior to being with Sean Payton either, so they kind of help each other. And what I really, really like about Sean Payton is he uses a lot of formations, and he really mixes it up. You probably can remember, when the Saints were on their Super Bowl run, they would come out 3 and 4 wide, and Drew Brees would throw it all over the field, and they'd come out the very next series, and they'd be power running Pierre Thomas, and it was a very difficult offense to prepare for because he was so diverse in what he did. And Miami is so the opposite of that right now, where they insistently run the same play formation for the most part, and they really need that. From the coordinator standpoint, I'm never excited about coordinators because it feels like they've got to go through the rigors of being the head coach, and so it's such a crapshoot with a coordinator. I've liked Josh McDaniels from the Patriots because I would hope that he would have some good insight on how to help defend the Patriots, and he's shown some good potential there. But on the flip side, how good is he really when he's had Tom Brady at quarterback all the time? And so that's always a hard thing to tell. Is the offense good because they have Brady, or is it really that good of an offense? So,
well, let's just for some perspective, and nobody's gonna like hearing this, but they did go to the playoffs with Tim Tebow as their quarterback with McDaniels.
Yeah, so I mean, that's if you're going to go the coordinator route, he's the highest. I would say on my board, but I still feel like Sean Payton is the best candidate that would potentially be out there. It's hard to get ones that I feel really good about. The last few years, Jim Harbaugh I was extremely high on, and I was extremely disappointed when they didn't get him, simply because Harbaugh has just done nothing but win wherever he's at. And here he is in Michigan, and granted they're not elite, but Jim Harbaugh inherited a Michigan team that has been mediocre, and suddenly they were competing right up here, to the end for the Big Ten title. And, he turned the team around immediately, and with the 49ers, he was immediately successful. And so I thought he was the best candidate in years that came through. And, Andy Reid would have been another good coach, I think. I know the Chiefs have been kind of up and down, but he's a real proven coach that knows what he's doing. And I don't see another one out there other than Sean Payton right now. At least you're getting a coach that's been a head coach with a pedigree of having success. And that is about the best you can ask for. I'm not really sold on college coaches, and the reason is the college football landscape is not an even landscape, and so for a coach to do well with a program it's highly successful. Nick Saban's a perfect example of how poorly he did with Miami, because Nick Saban in the college football ranks always gets superior athletes for the most part. He coaches very few games against teams that have more talented players than he has. And that doesn't translate well in the NFL, because the NFL, I think, of any sport out there, is the most evenly matched sport there is. And so you're playing against teams that have about the same talent level as you do typically. And, the differences in these games are how good are your quarterbacks and how good are your coaches. So I think bringing in a college guy would be extremely risky. And Miami's just in a scenario right now where what they really need is stability. They need a coach that can come in, take control of the team, lead the way, and maximize the talent they have. So that's why I'm going with Sean Payton.
My personal pick would be Hugh Jackson, and simply because he's been a head coach before, and he supposedly is one of these guys who have the capability of molding the talent around him to, or rather molding his scheme to the talent around him. But before we go, I want to ask you guys something, because this is something that was brought up earlier, and I don't know what to think about it. Do either of you two know who Gary Patterson is?
I do not.
Duke? Oh, Duke left. Well, I was wondering where he went. All right, so another name thrown out there was Gary Patterson. If I could do a quick Google search on him, I think he's a college coach, which is the reason I don't know who he is. Yeah, he's the head football coach currently at Texas Christian University. So I don't know why he's so special, really. I guess something that's...
Well, as a program, they've been highly successful the last few years, so I can understand, maybe he has some, ability in there. But again, if you're going to college-ranked coach, obviously a guy I have to assume he did well without superior talent, so that's a plus in his factor. But I just get nervous on college coaches, because I feel that's just like bringing in a rookie quarterback. You just have no idea what you're really getting at this level. It's risky to bring somebody in like that. But that's, some teams succeed at doing that, others don't. But yeah, I mean, I understand somebody thinking that.
Yeah, all right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be it for us. How long have we been doing this show already? It feels like we've been here for a lot longer than we usually... Yeah, well, no, not really, actually. It only feels like that. We've actually been going for about an hour and 40 minutes. That's a pretty good show, I'd say. We talked about a lot. The Reshad Jones interview, Ryan. We talked a lot about quarterbacks and the recent downgrade of all college quarterbacks coming out of college. It just... What Ian said, I'm really scared that this is going to be what the NFL is quickly going to become. It's just a higher form of college football with the pro offenses essentially going extinct. I'm hoping that this isn't the case, and eventually people will realize once again that patience is a virtue, and you can't live in a microwave society if you want to have sustained success. It just doesn't work. If you nuke something, it's going to come out radioactive, and you're not going to want to eat it. So, I hope everybody has learned something after this show, and I hope you all enjoyed that. For myself and, of course, my co-host Chad Ronnebaum, we'll see you all next week, where we'll be probably discussing more off-season stuff, unless the Miami Dolphins manage to pull off some sort of miracle. So that's going to be it. Thank you all for listening, and let's be back next week, shall we?